Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. I thought I'd sneak a few moments in while my grandbaby's taking his nap. And I try to appeal to a broad audience of tarot. I do the videos on film and movies and trying to answer plot holes. I'll do some true crime kind of readings because a lot of people are very interested in modern day events. I'll do history mysteries because they're fun too. And I do some personal readings. I do a fair share of personal readings. And there are probably so many other ways because I'm always how to find lost items, that kind of thing. So I try to appeal to as broad an audience as I can. But I don't, because tarot is not a one-size-fits-all, right? We know that. It's not one-size-fits-all. And the reason I started doing readings, demonstration readings, is because I noticed that a lot of people were showing their decks off. And they were showing how wonderful their decks were. But not a lot of people were venturing into the realm of doing demonstration readings. And I understand that because it's kind of scary to do it at first because everybody's a critic. You know, and everybody, I mean, I still get my fair share of people who correct my reading, you know. But I think it's, fundamentally, I'm a teacher. And fundamentally, the way you learn is to see somebody do a reading. And even if it's not the way you would do it, because I'm certainly, and I've never advocated that the way I do it is the only correct way. It's my way. You know, and the one thing I try to explain in all of my videos when I do readings is that the important part of being a proficient tarot reader is to have an intimate relationship with the cards. You don't have to have the same elemental dignities as I do. You don't have to understand each of the cards in the same way I do. I just offer how I do things. And you can do it the same way if you feel it makes sense to you. Or you can pick and choose what I do that you like and apply it to yourself. Or change it and modify it, which is exactly what I did. I you know, in the early days, I read as much as I could. There was no one to show me how to read. There was nobody who said, hey, here's how I do it. There was nobody, right? So the only way I had to learn was to read as much as I could, observe the cards, which I'm fanatical with. You see how I dissect the cards. I look at them quite a bit. I have a highly analytical mind. And I just came up with my own method for interpreting the cards based on what other people who have come before me did that I read in books. You know, if it made sense to me, I used it. That's how it is, right? So I don't want anyone to think that the way I do the cards is the only way or the only correct way. And if you were to interpret the cards in a different way, that's fine, you know. But as long as a person is the one who's laying out the cards and connecting with whatever source there is, they're the person that the message is coming to and through. We can share ideas about what it could mean, right? But the message is, you know, just like if you guys, any of you were to post on, let's say, a Facebook page or your own YouTube channel, and you were to give a meaning for an interpretation, I would never go into it and say, I think you're wrong, I think it means this. You know, I would leave it alone. I might think in my own mind, well, I would have interpreted it differently. But the source, you're the source. If you're the one who's laying the cards and you're the one who connected to the source, the message is coming through you. And so the way you interpret the cards is the meaning of the cards. I hope that made sense. Okay, so anyway, today I thought I would do a Histories Mysteries. It's not that long ago. I think it's from 1946. There was a young starlet named Jean Spangler. She was probably up and coming. She might have amounted to something. She, like many of the starlets of the early 50s, you know, she probably would have, I'm guessing she would have amounted to something. I say that because there are photographs of her in court, and for something, like for a child custody case or something like that. And the newspapers didn't really take much interest in somebody who was just, I mean, how many cases are there every minute for, child custody cases, right? So the fact that her picture made it into a newspaper sort of suggests that she was somebody to keep an eye on. She was probably an up-and-coming kind of starlet. She would have been a starlet at the same time that Marilyn Monroe was a starlet, although in 1953, Monroe made 3 films that really caught on to the public, and that's the year that Marilyn Monroe became a big star. But it seems like Spangler may have been on the same kind of trajectory. At any rate, she disappeared, and there's never been any significant lead suggesting where she may have ended up. I'm just giving you this background information. You could certainly find the information from Wikipedia, which is where I found most of this information. She is known by her intimate friends and maybe her sister as well to have been about 3 months pregnant at the time that she went missing. And in 1953, an unmarried woman that was pregnant, it was a problem, okay? She, as I mentioned, she had been involved in a custody case with her ex-husband, and who had remarried. One of the explanations she gave the people she was living with her mother, who was away for a few days, and I think her sister was also at that residence, or her sister-in-law, something like that. And the explanation she gave for why she went out that evening was to see her ex-husband, who owed her child support money. And although he has, he claimed later that that was not true. They never met up, and his new wife, verified that she was his alibi, of course. So it was not really clear who she went to see. There was a witness at a farmer's market or a grocery store or something like that who recognized her and said they saw her at the market, and it appeared as though she was waiting for someone, but who she was waiting for never appeared there. And in the only thing that was found, the only evidence that was found from Jean Spangler was a handbag that was found in Echo Park, which was her handbag. The strap was broken, so there was some type of altercation, perhaps, that would have led to the handbag being broken. Inside the handbag, there was no money, but there was a note that read something like, Kirk, time is of the essence. I'm paraphrasing the note. Kirk, time is of the essence. Now is the perfect time. I'm going to see Dr. Scott. Something like that. So the implication, or if you read between the lines, it kind of suggests, well, we know she's pregnant. We know she's 3 months pregnant because after the fact, after she went missing, her family admitted that she was 3 months pregnant. So it sort of suggests that she was probably going to see somebody who called himself Dr. Scott for an illegal abortion. So of course no doctor would come forward and say, oh yeah, she was pregnant and I was going to take care of it. Nobody would ever do that. So, but the thing that really perplexes me is, why was the letter still in the handbag? Because if the individual, she hadn't given him the note yet. She hadn't given him the note yet. However, if the guy Kirk is the one who impregnated her, which is what the suggestion sounds like, he would have known that she was in that situation, because the note doesn't say I'm pregnant. The note says time is of the essence and I'm going to get it taken care of and I'm going to see Dr. Scott. So whoever Kirk is knew the situation. And so it's not clear to me. It's just like kind of weird to me that the note would still be in her handbag. And if she was going to meet a guy named Kirk, then why would she need the note? You see what I'm saying? Because she would tell him in person. Anyway, there's been some supposition that because she was in a film as an extra for The Man with the Horn, I think it was called, and Kirk Russell was in that film, there was some, suggestion that maybe she had a little dalliance with him, although there's nothing to prove that that's the case. And she had mentioned to someone, a friend, that she was having the time of her life in a secret romance. So who knows what that means. And I've just, I just want to know if the universe will reveal anything. And I'm going to do my signature 13 card spread just to see how much information we can receive regarding this very cold case. We just have these fragmented bits of information. And even the handbag can't even be checked nowadays for DNA or anything like that because the handbag went missing. So the handbag was in police custody and it no longer exists. It's gone. Isn't that something? So, I mean, and even, in 1953, nobody knew about DNA, so it probably wasn't handled very carefully. And so therefore, any DNA evidence we might get from the handbag wouldn't be too helpful because it was probably handled by a million police officers, right? But it still could tell some tale. It still could tell some stories, but it disappeared, completely disappeared. Her body was never found. Now, the next year, 1947, was when Elizabeth Short went missing. And, she didn't go missing. Elizabeth Short's body was found in a very abused condition. And I'm not going to get into that or repeat her moniker here. But if you are interested in learning about that, if you don't already know about it, just look up Elizabeth Short, 1947, and you'll see. But it's worth noting that happened the year later. But still, this girl's body was never found. So it's not clear whether that could have been a connection or not. Anyway, without much ado, I'm going to go into my meditative place. I'm going to ask the universe to tell us what we need to know. Maybe we don't need to know all the answers. And then I'll lay the cards and see what story unfolds. And you see my little peanut is sound asleep. Hopefully, he usually takes a good hour nap, so I should be able to get a good amount of time in here. And once again, I'm using the Yerger Tarot by Artisan Tarot. And the reason the Jacob Yerger Tarot, because it's my newest deck and I like the way it handles. And also when a deck creator is generous enough to send me decks, and especially if I really like them, I feel I really want to help them, I really want to help the deck get as much airtime as I can. I want to help contribute to people purchasing a nice deck. So I want to, if in my small way I'm able to help the deck, along, I'm happy to do it. Okay. Two of Cups. Wow. So there was a lover, maybe whoever the lover. Wow, that's something. Okay, those two cards right off the bat. Whoa. Wow. Isn't that something? Oh, we have a 2 and a 6 is 8. 8 and 13 is 21. That's the World card. Wow. Well, I won't pull it yet. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have peeked. I don't remember what I saw, though. Four coins. See, I'm anxious to pull. Temperance. Okay, this must be an impetuous act right below the Death card, which is very interesting. Okay. So we know that this card up here, I think, was the World card, right? We have 2 and 8. 2 and 6, rather, is 8. 8 and 13 would be 21. We have 4 and 14, 18. That would be the Moon. And we have 10. So we have cards of domesticity and romance. Okay, we have 1 sword. That's 13. 13 and 5 is 18. So that's another Moon card as a quint. Okay. So let me pull the quints, put them up there. I hope you can see these well enough. So it's interesting because we have what I would consider mostly, predominantly passive cards with the exception of 1. Well, on 2. This is a very interesting spread. Let me pull the cards. Okay, and because they're the 2 moon cards had to be used, I used a moon card from a second deck that just happened to be on my tarot table. So this first row is very intriguing to me because right out of the bat we see what looks like a romance. So there's definitely connected to a romance, and then we see the Death card. And then, the woman's been missing for 80 years, so for 78 years or something like that. So the suggestion is that a romantic entanglement probably led to her death. Now we see this card, the World card. The World card can mean a few things in different contexts. It could mean that, some people might see this as representing the birth canal. Maybe she had a botched abortion. That was something that was lovely and sweet and it wasn't supposed to happen, but, maybe there was a botched abortion. It seems clear that there's like a death involved, right? And mystery that we'll never know the truth probably. So there's that possibility. But the World card can mean something else also. But I'll get to that after I take a look at some of these other cards. We see money, right? Now, supposedly, the excuse she gave with a wink to her, she said that she was going to meet up with her ex-husband because he was behind in child support. Now, that may have been true, because if you needed an illegal abortion, you were going to need some money. And so the heat might be on, if you really needed the money. She may in fact have needed to meet up with her ex-husband to get some money. Now he denies it and his new wife says she's his alibi. But it would make sense, that she needed money. So it makes sense, and I see this money here, that maybe it had something to do with money. She needed some money. Now the money is not like it's not increasing nor is it decreasing. We have a domestic, could mean like a stable domestic situation. Maybe she needed to contact her ex-husband for some money. We have this curious little symbol here as well. Directly underneath it, we have 10 coins, which suggests a lot of money in the context of the question. And then here we have 5 coins. So it's 4, 10, 5. Not progressively getting larger, not progressively getting smaller, but progressively getting a little more complicated, because 4 and 10 are stable numbers, but the 5 is not stable, which is interesting. I don't know what it means. The ex-husband claims that they never met and they didn't have any plans, and she might have just been using that as an excuse to get out of the house. She said she was going to be gone all night, and she also claimed that after, I guess, she saw her ex-husband for money, that she was going to work all night at the studio. So she was supposedly going to work all night, but the records were checked, and any studio she was part of, there was no all-night kind of schedule or anything like that. Now, for those of you who may be thinking, well, Kirk is probably Kirk Douglas, he might have, who knows? I'm not suggesting that that's the case, but he happened to be in Florida, I think, on vacation with his family, or he was someplace else on vacation with his family. So physically, he was not responsible. He himself was not responsible for her disappearance. He may have known more than he shared, because initially he said he never heard of her, never knew of her. And then when it was pointed out to him that she was in a movie he was in, then he remembered that he knew her and that they joked around a little bit, but that was the extent of it. So he might be just a very unlucky fella, that his name is the same name as whoever seems to be implied in the letter as being like somebody who's intimately aware of a need to see Dr. Scott before things progress too much, or something to that effect. But to me, the cards sort of suggest that, in the front row, just sort of suggest to me, right out of the gate, that there was a romantic entanglement that resulted in her death, perhaps as a result of what is assumed is an abortion. But let's take a look at some of these other cards. It is possible that she did meet with her ex-husband who did give her the money. Because if there was or a botched circumstance, or if something was dangerous, I don't know. I think these procedures back in those days probably meant more harm regarding future pregnancies. But I don't know if they necessarily always, or if they necessarily killed a woman, especially if she was involved in Hollywood types. I would think that if, especially if the studio was in on it, or if a movie star was in on it, she would have gone to somebody who at least was capable, right? She wouldn't necessarily have gone to a butcher unless, maybe she didn't have help from whoever it was who did it. I don't know. I think the money here definitely is, she needed money from somebody. So whoever, maybe she never did call her ex-husband. Maybe she used that as an excuse to get out of the house that night. But it seems like somebody did give her the money. The temperance card can be seen as a card of alchemy, So changing something from one thing to another. So it could have been a little bit of like a doctor doing something, and if he wasn't a legitimate doctor, just somebody playing with magic, like in those days. And I guess it's not a right way to say it, but I hope some of you are understanding how I'm thinking. Now, I deliberately did not lay the quint card for the entire spread, but I'm going to lay it at this point. It happens to be 13. It happens to be the death card. Now, it seems as though we're being banged over the head by, there's death. At this stage, she was already probably in her 20s, so at this stage, she would have probably already lived her natural life out, But I don't think that the cards are suggesting that she died because she lived her life out. I think it's suggesting that whatever came of her that day did result in her death. And we have the two nighttime cards. This happened in the evening. It's in line with the card that I suggest might have, represented, having been maybe killed accidentally during a procedure. That's possible. I don't know how dangerous they were. I know they could be dangerous as far as never being able to have other children, but they weren't always necessarily dangerous in that a woman died. But I think some women did die. Okay. And so then we have other cards that could suggest birthing and female things, right? So it kind of just confirms, like, I don't even need these cards really. This row is the most helpful, but this row and then these cards kind of tell me that it had to do with female things. It probably had to do with a botched abortion or something related to that. And ultimately, whatever it was that went down that evening is what killed her. She didn't run off with anybody or anything like that. This money just seems to me like she got money from somebody because she needed money. There was an impetuous person, somebody who maybe doesn't want to be known. I don't know if he's the one who did it. But there could be a couple of people. It could be the ex-husband who did meet with her to give her money, because he did owe her money. But he was innocent. Maybe he didn't have anything to do with this, but he didn't want to say, I gave her some money, because then it looks like he was the last person to see her. You know what I'm saying? So it could be somebody who's sneaking from the events, right? Or it could be somebody who is Kirk, who is her boyfriend, who had maybe nothing to do with, what happened to her. But he's not going to step forward and say, it was my girlfriend, I got her pregnant. So there is somebody who is aware of the circumstance, but he is absolutely not participating, obviously. Nobody stepped up and said they knew anything. This card is interesting because it just seems like alchemy. It seems like, and I'm connecting this with the doctor, I guess, doing something, alchemy can have, or playing around with something, trying to get something else out of it. He may have been in over his head and maybe the woman bled to death, or I don't know. But it falls right above swords, and the sword is pointing upward, right? And above this is the Six of Cups. So, and then this kind of has the same shape as this. So it could look like a piercing of the womb, right? We can get that kind of association going. So I'm kind of convinced that these cards are suggesting that she did meet with somebody who gave her money, who didn't want to be associated with what happened. And there's no evidence that he was there, nobody saw him or whatever, so he gets away with that. Or this could represent the individual who got her in that situation, and he's not going to speak up. But that this poor soul, the poor soul met her demise as a result of that evening, which appears to have been due to a romantic thing. And I don't think these cards tell us anything else that we don't already know just from reading Wikipedia. But it sort of is just verifying, or what's the word? Validating. Validating that the pieces that have been put together kind of match what these cards suggest. We'll probably never know. We'll probably never, ever, ever know. I guess we could ask. Oh, I want to get these cards that are not from the same deck. I guess we could ask where her body, where her remains may be found. Let's try that. I'll just do a 3-card spread on that. Okay, so I've already been in my meditative place. Just asking, the cards indicate that, it's a mystery. It's just going to remain a mystery. We'll probably never find her body, but her remains. However, they had to go somewhere. They had to go somewhere. Something had to be done with her. And whether or not we ever find her, at least maybe let's ask where, what became of her remains. She could have been a Jane Doe or something like that. Wow, 12 and 15, 27. 27 minus 22 would be, in this deck, Jupiter. So let me pull Jupiter, hopefully. There he is. Now, in the context of the question, if we're trying to find out where, where something happened, right? So remember the question. The question is where. So these cards could be interpreted any number of ways. But if you're interpreting the cards to answer the question, and the question is where, there's a few suggestions that there's in the elements, right? We have, a thunderbolt yielding kind of fella, who's kind of on top of a cloud, and he's not the same as the Pope. In some ways, they parallel meaning. You can have similar meanings, but there is a different connotation with the Jupiter versus the Pope. And to answer the question, it sort of seems like out in the elements, right? She could have been left out in the elements. Where in the elements? Well, here's water. This is a large body of water. They're on the coast of California, for goodness sakes. Her body could have been sent out in a boat. We have a vessel here. Remember, we're interpreting I am interpreting the cards to answer the question. And so the connections I'm making wouldn't necessarily always be the same standard answer I might have for another question. And one thing that I try to teach when I show my videos, and I don't always point out everything I do, right? But those of you who've been following me long enough probably start figuring these things out. But I'll interpret the cards to answer the question, not to get every single possible answer there might be, So I'm thinking, like, where is she? Well, this card, first card I see, kind of reminds me of being out in the elements, right? Where are they? They're in California. There's water. Here's something that could look like a boat. She could have been sent out into the ocean. The other reading indicated that we'd probably never find her, or it will remain a mystery forever. Now, this card, how does it answer where? Well, this could also suggest the ground, because where is the devil? We think, most of the time we associate the devil with being in the ground. But that seems to be counterintuitive with having been dumped, right? Dumped somewhere. But this could suggest that she's deep, she's deep in the ocean even. This could, we think of the devil as being deep in the ground or something like that, deep in the earth. But she could be significantly deep in the Pacific Ocean. That could be a suggestion. And it could be what somebody did. Somebody who had money or means or whatever. She'll never be found. She'll never be found if that is the case. Doesn't mean that's what happened. It doesn't mean I'm right. I just am interpreting the cards, and this is the suggestion I'm getting. So I hope this has been interesting for you. And until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.